The first shot came at 2,147 hours, punching through Petty Officer Davis's helmet and dropping him instantly. The SEAL team scattered into the darkness, but there was nowhere to hide. The enemy sniper had thermal optics. Could see their heat signatures glowing like beacons in the Afghan night. Sniper multiple positions. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Stone screamed into his radio as another round cracked past his head, missing by inches. "We need immediate." The second SEAL went down, then the third. The team was being systematically eliminated by snipers they couldn't see, couldn't locate, couldn't fight back against in the pitch-black mountain terrain with no moon and heavy cloud cover. The enemy had every advantage. Skywatch, this is Alpha Team. We're pinned down by multiple snipers with thermal capabilities. 3 down, need immediate support. Alpha Team, nearest air support is 40 minutes out. Ground reinforcements are 60 minutes. Can you hold position? Stone looked at his remaining 7 operators, all pressed against rocks and ridges, trying to make themselves smaller targets. Another shot rang out, impacting 6 inches from his face. Rock fragments drew. Blood across his cheek. Negative Skywatch. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they pick us all off. These snipers own the night. That's when Staff Sergeant Valeria Scott's voice cut through the chaos on the radio, calm as someone ordering coffee. "Alpha Team, this is Overwatch." "I can." "Hunt them, send me your coordinates and stay low." Stone had never heard of Overwatch. Who the hell is this? "We need actual support, not, Chief, I'm 300 meters northwest of your position. I've been tracking enemy movement for the past hour. I count 10 snipers in a coordinated kill zone. They're using AN/PAS-13 thermal weapon sights. I can eliminate them, but I need you to trust me and stay down. You're one person. We need a platoon, air support, something that can..." Another SEAL screamed as a round shattered his leg. That made 4 casualties in less than 3 minutes. "Chief, you're out of time." "I'm moving now. Keep your IR strobes off and don't shoot. At muzzle flashes, you'll give away your positions." "I've got this." Stone didn't have a choice. His team was dying. "Copy, Overwatch, the night is yours." What Chief Stone didn't know, what nobody in that valley knew, was that Staff Sergeant Valeria Scott was the Army's most lethal night hunter. 3 tours specializing in nocturnal counter-sniper operations. 200 confirmed kills, 80% of them in total darkness. She'd been attached to SEAL operations as an observer because conventional wisdom said you couldn't hunt snipers at night. The enemy had thermal optics, night vision, prepared positions. Hunting them in darkness was considered suicide. Valeria had spent 3 years proving conventional wisdom was wrong. She moved through the Afghan night like a ghost, her specially modified night vision giving her advantages even the enemy's thermal scopes couldn't match. What happened in the next 4 hours would prove that some hunters were deadliest when the sun went down. Val, YRIA had been watching the SEAL team walk into the ambush for the past 20 minutes. She tried to warn them over command channels, but bureaucracy and protocols meant her warnings hadn't reached the team in time. Now they were pinned down in a kill zone that had been weeks in the making, a valley floor surrounded by ridges where 10 enemy snipers had prepared positions with overlapping fields of fire. She'd been tracking these snipers for 3 days. Knew their positions, their patterns, their capabilities. They were good former military, well-equipped, operating with professional discipline. During daylight, they were nearly impossible to locate. But Valeria didn't hunt during daylight. She'd waited for nightfall, knowing that darkness would make the enemy confident. They had thermal scopes that could see heat signatures. They thought that made them invincible at night. They didn't know Valeria had spent 6 months working with DARPA on experimental night vision technology that combined thermal imaging with advanced image enhancement. She could see what they saw, plus she could see the environment around them. She could spot the heat signatures of their scopes, the thermal blooms from their bodies, the minute temperature differences that betrayed their positions even through camouflage. The first sniper was 430 meters northeast, positioned in a rocky outcrop that gave him perfect elevation over the valley floor. Through her advanced optics, Valeria could see his thermal signature. He was lying prone behind his rifle, scanning for targets through his thermal scope. She was 380 meters from him, positioned on a parallel ridge he didn't know existed. Her SR-25 rifle was equipped with a suppressor and subsonic ammunition. When she fired, the sound would be a quiet crack that would dissipate in the mountain air, nearly impossible to locate. She controlled her breathing, calculated the shot. Wind at this altitude was variable, but her years of experience let her read it instinctively. The enemy sniper shifted slightly, adjusting his position. Valeria squeezed the trigger. The suppressed rifle coughed. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper's thermal signature suddenly go limp. He never knew what hit him. 1 down. 9 to go. She moved immediately. The fundamental rule of night sniping was never shoot twice from the same position. She low-crawled 20 meters to a new location, her movement silent, her thermal signature masked by the rocks around her. The second enemy sniper was 520 meters south, positioned in a dried riverbed that gave him concealment and a clear view of the SEAL team's position. He was currently firing. The muzzle flash of his rifle visible through her optics. Even though he was using a flash suppressor, Valeria waited for him to fire again, knowing his attention would be focused through his scope on the target below. When the muzzle flash came, she had her shot lined up perfectly. The subsonic round took 1.2 seconds to cover the distance. The enemy sniper was already working his bolt for another shot when Valeria's bullet arrived. His thermal signature collapsed. 2 down, 8 to go. Now the remaining enemy snipers would start to realize something was wrong. 2 of their number had gone silent within 3 minutes. They'd try to establish communication, realize they couldn't raise them, start scanning for threats. Valeria was already moving to her next position, using terrain features to mask her movement. The enemy snipers were looking down into the valley, searching for threats among the SEALs. They weren't looking behind them, weren't considering that. Someone might be hunting them from the ridges they thought were secure. The 3rd and 4th snipers were working as a team, positioned 340 meters west in a cluster of boulders. One was the shooter, one was the spotter. Smart tactics that made them more effective and harder to eliminate. Valeria positioned herself with angles on both of them. The shooter was focused on the valley floor. The spotter was scanning with thermal binoculars, searching for threats. She took the spotter first. He was the one who might spot her. The shot was 355 meters at a slight downward angle. She compensated for the geometry, fired. The spotter's thermal signature went dark. The shooter reacted immediately, turning to his partner, realizing something was wrong. That moment of distraction was all Valeria needed. Second shot, 3 seconds after the first. The shooter went down. 4 down, 6 to go, on the valley floor. Chief Stone was watching his remaining SEALs huddle in whatever cover they could find. The enemy fire had stopped. For 30 seconds, there had been no shots from the surrounding ridges. Overwatch, Alpha Team. What's your status? Valeria's voice came back, still calm. 4 enemy snipers eliminated, 6 remaining. Stay in position. This is going to take a few more minutes. 4 snipers eliminated. How are you? Chief, with respect, let me work. Keep your team down and quiet. Stone looked at his operators. They were all staring at him, waiting for answers he didn't have. Someone out there in the darkness was hunting the hunters, and whoever she was frighteningly effective. The 5th enemy sniper was the hardest target yet. He was positioned 680 meters east in a cave entrance that gave him almost complete cover. Only the barrel of his rifle and his thermal scope were visible from Valeria's position. It was an incredibly difficult shot, small target at extended range in darkness with variable wind. Most snipers wouldn't attempt it, but Valeria had made similar shots dozens of times. She settled into position, controlled her breathing, calculated every variable. The enemy sniper fired at something in the valley, giving her the exact position of his rifle barrel. She aimed 6 inches behind where she could see the thermal bloom of his scope, knowing that's where his head would be. The angle was extreme, the target minimal. She took the shot, 680 meters through mountain air. The subsonic round flew true. The thermal bloom of the enemy scope suddenly went dark, then fell sideways as the sniper collapsed. 5. Down, 5 to go. Now the remaining enemy snipers were definitely aware they were being hunted. Valeria could see them through her optics, scanning the ridges, trying to locate her. But she was positioned in places they'd never considered. Using angles they thought were impossible, the first shot came at 2,147 hours, punching through Petty Officer Davis's helmet and dropping him instantly. The SEAL team scattered into the darkness, but there was nowhere to hide. The enemy sniper had thermal optics. Could see their heat signatures glowing like B. The sixth sniper made a fatal mistake. He used his radio, and the electromagnetic signature from his transmission lit up on Valeria's detection equipment. She tracked the signal to a position 290 meters north where a sniper had concealed himself in thick brush. He thought he was invisible. The brush hid him from visual detection, and his careful positioning meant his thermal signature blended with the ambient heat of the rocks. But Valeria could see the slight anomaly, the difference between rock temperature and human temperature. She fired into the brush, aiming at the center of that thermal difference. The brush shifted as the body fell. 6 down, the 7th and 8th. Snipers panicked. They broke position, trying to relocate to better cover. The movement made them visible to Valeria's advanced optics heat signatures moving against the cooler background of rock and soil. She tracked the first one as he ran, led him by 2 meters to account for his movement and the bullet's flight. Time. Fired. The running figure collapsed mid-stride. The second one had made it to new cover, a position behind a large boulder 410 meters away. He thought he was safe, but he'd stopped in a location where his thermal signature was partially visible around the edge of the boulder. Valeria took her time with this shot, calculated the exact angle needed to thread the bullet through the narrow gap, fired. The thermal signature disappeared. 8 down, 2 to go. The remaining 2 enemy snipers had gone completely dark. They'd turned off their thermal scopes, stopped moving, made themselves as small as possible. They knew they were being hunted by someone with superior capabilities, and their only hope was to hide and hope she couldn't find them, but Valeria had been tracking all 10 snipers for days. She knew their preferred positions, their backup locations, their escape routes. She knew where they'd go when they went to ground. The 9th sniper had retreated to a position 580 meters southeast, a narrow crevice in the rocks that provided excellent protection. He was completely invisible to thermal imaging. The rocks around him masked his heat signature perfectly. But Valeria didn't need thermal imaging to find him. She'd watched him prepare this exact position 2 days earlier. She knew precisely where he'd be. She fired into the crevice, aiming at where experience told her a prone sniper would position himself for a shot. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a thermal signature appeared, the heat of fresh blood, warmer than the surrounding rocks. 9 down, 1 to go. The last enemy sniper was the best of them. He'd remained completely still for 10 minutes, not moving, not emitting any electromagnetic signals, not giving Valeria any indication of where he was. But everyone makes mistakes eventually. After 12 minutes of complete stillness, he shifted. His weight slightly. Just a tiny movement to ease cramped muscles. That movement created a brief thermal bloom as his body pressed against rock in a new position. It was visible for less than 3 seconds. But 3 seconds was all Valeria needed. She tracked to the source of that thermal anomaly, calculated where a sniper would position himself in that location, and fired. The 10th enemy sniper never made another sound. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch. All 10 enemy snipers eliminated. You're clear to move. Chief Stone stared into the darkness, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. One person had eliminated 10 enemy snipers in 4 hours of night operations. Snipers that had his entire SEAL team pinned down and dying. Overwatch, Alpha Team. What's your position? We need to link up. I'm coming to you, Chief. 3 minutes. Valeria moved down from the ridges, her night vision showing her the terrain in perfect detail. She'd been operating in this darkness for 4 hours, moving between positions, taking shots that most snipers would consider impossible when she reached the valley floor. The SEALs were still pressed into their defensive positions. Chief Stone stood up as she approached, and even in the darkness, she could see the shock on his face. She was 32 years old, average height, lean build from years of mountain operations. Her gear was specialized night vision that looked more advanced than anything the SEALs had seen, a rifle with modifications that made it perfect for night operations, equipment for detecting thermal and electromagnetic signatures. "Staff Sergeant Valeria Scott," she said, extending her hand. "Sorry I couldn't warn you before you walked into the ambush. Command channels were backed up." Stone shook her hand, still processing. "You just eliminated 10 enemy snipers in total." "Darkness, how is that even possible?" "Training, equipment, and experience. I specialize in nocturnal counter-sniper operations. The enemy thinks thermal optics give them dominance at night. They're wrong. The darkness just makes them confident, which makes them predictable." One of the SEAL operators, Petty Officer Jake Morrison, approached. "Ma'am, I've been operating in these mountains for 8 months. We've been trying to locate these snipers for weeks. How did you find them all in one night?" "I've been tracking them for 3 days. During daylight, they're nearly impossible to pinpoint, too much cover, too many possible positions. But at night, they have to use thermal optics to see, and those optics emit a slight electromagnetic signature. I can track that. Plus, their body heat creates signatures that are visible with the right equipment. Darkness is their weakness, not their strength." The SEAL team medic was working on the 4 wounded operators. 3 would survive. Their injuries were serious but manageable. The 4th, Petty Officer Davis, who'd been hit first, was dead. The round had penetrated his helmet at a weak point. Valeria looked at the casualties and felt the familiar weight of being almost too late. If she'd been able to warn them earlier, if the command structure hadn't delayed her intelligence. But she couldn't change that now. What she could do was make sure these enemy snipers never killed anyone else. "Chief, I need to verify the eliminations, make sure all 10 are confirmed dead, and collect intelligence from their positions." "Can your team assist?" Stone nodded. "We'll split into teams and check each position, but I'm coming with you to the first one. I need to see this for myself." They moved through the darkness to the nearest enemy sniper position, the one 430 meters northeast. When they reached it, Stone used his night vision to examine the body. The enemy sniper was exactly where Valeria had said, dead from a single shot through the head. His thermal scope was still in position, still warm from recent use. "You made this shot from where?" Stone asked. 380 meters, from a ridge on the opposite side of the valley. He never knew I was there. Stone examined the sniper's position. It was professional, good cover, excellent field of fire, prepared fallback routes. This wasn't an amateur. These guys were trained military, probably former special forces. They'd been operating in these mountains for months, killing our people, with impunity, and you took them all out in one night. They were good at what they did, Valeria acknowledged, but they made a fundamental mistake. They assumed darkness gave them an advantage. In reality, it just made them visible in different ways. Heat signatures, electromagnetic emissions from their optics, movement patterns, all of it is more visible at night if you know what to look for. Exactly, Valeria confirmed. Every tool has vulnerabilities. Thermal optics are incredible for seeing heat signatures, but they also emit radiation, create signature profiles, and give the user tunnel vision. If you know how to exploit those vulnerabilities, you can turn the enemy's advantages into weaknesses. The real test came 6 weeks later. Intelligence identified another enemy sniper cell operating in a different mountain region. 8 snipers who'd been killing coalition forces for months. They operated exclusively at night, using thermal optics to devastating effect. Command authorized a night operation to eliminate them. Valeria would lead a team of 4 SEALs. She'd personally trained. They inserted via helicopter at 2,200 hours, landing 3 kilometers from the target area. The night was overcast, no moon, visibility near zero for anyone without night vision. perfect conditions. Valeria and her team moved through the darkness like they were born to it. Each operator wore the advanced optics she'd helped develop, carried weapons optimized for night operations, used electromagnetic detection equipment to track enemy positions. Within 90 minutes, they'd located all 8 enemy snipers. The enemy was positioned in a valley similar to the one where Valeria had made her first 10 eliminations, ridges surrounding a choke point overlapping fields of fire. Professional positioning. Alpha Team has all 8 positions marked, Valeria whispered into her radio. Engaging in sequence from north to south. Maintain position and watch for my signals. The first enemy sniper was 520 meters north. Valeria lined up the shot, her advanced optics showing her his thermal signature clearly despite the total darkness. She fired. The suppressed rifle made almost no sound. The enemy sniper's thermal signature went dark. 1 down. She moved. Immediately, relocating 30 meters to a new position. The SEALs with her were watching, learning, seeing how she operated in real combat. The second sniper was 440 meters northeast, positioned behind rocks. Valeria could see the thermal bloom of his scope as he scanned the valley below. She waited for him to be focused downrange, then took her shot. 2 down. The third and fourth snipers were working as a pair, 380 meters east. Valeria signaled to Petty Officer Morrison, who'd positioned himself with an angle on the second target. They fired simultaneously. Both enemy snipers went down within a second of each other. 4 down. The remaining 4 enemy snipers knew something was wrong. They began scanning the ridges, searching for threats. But Valeria and her team were positioned in places the enemy didn't expect, using angles that seemed impossible. The 5th sniper made the mistake of moving to a new position. The movement created a thermal signature that stood out against the cooler rocks. Valeria tracked him, led the target, fired. 5 down. The 6th and 7th snipers had gone completely still, trying to hide in the darkness, but their thermal scopes were still active, still emitting electromagnetic signatures that Valeria's equipment could detect. She marked the positions for her team. 2 SEALs fired simultaneously at the marked locations. 7 down. The last enemy sniper was the smartest of them all. He turned off his thermal scope, stopped moving, made himself nearly invisible. For 10 minutes, there was no sign of him. Then Valeria spotted something, a tiny thermal anomaly, barely visible, that didn't match the surrounding terrain. It could be the enemy sniper, or it could be nothing. She waited, patient, letting the target reveal himself through some inevitable movement or heat emission. After 12 minutes, the anomaly shifted slightly. That was all she needed. She fired into the darkness at a target she could barely see. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thermal signature appeared, the heat of a body falling, blood warming the cold rocks. 8 down. Alpha Team, all targets eliminated. Move in and verify. The verification took 90 minutes. All 8 enemy snipers were confirmed dead, each one killed with a single precise shot in total darkness. The intelligence gathered from their positions provided information on enemy networks that had been operating in the region for over a year. Valeria's night hunting tactics had just eliminated 16 enemy snipers and 2 months snipers, who'd been killing coalition forces with impunity for years. Back at base, the debriefs were intense. Word had spread through the special operations community about the night hunter, who was eliminating enemy snipers that everyone else said were impossible to locate. Colonel Hayes pulled her aside after one debrief. Staff Sergeant Scott, what you've accomplished is going to change how we conduct night operations. The Pentagon is requesting you develop a formal training program for nocturnal counter-sniper tactics. They want to replicate your capabilities across all special operations units. Ma'am, I'm willing to train anyone who wants to learn, but I need to make something clear. This isn't about me being special. This is about understanding that we've been approaching night operations with the wrong mindset. We've been treating darkness as a limitation when it should be viewed as an advantage. With proper training and equipment, any skilled operator can do what I do. Perhaps, but you pioneered these tactics. You proved they work. That makes you the subject matter expert. Over the following year, Valeria trained hundreds of operators in nocturnal counter-sniper operations. Her techniques became standard doctrine for special operations units operating in Afghanistan and other theaters. Enemy sniper activity dropped dramatically. The enemy had relied on darkness as protection, but now darkness made them vulnerable. Their thermal optics, which they'd thought made them invincible, became tracking beacons for American night hunters. Chief Stone requested Valeria for 3 more operations over the next 6 months. Each time they eliminated enemy snipers that conventional operations couldn't locate. Her total count reached 34 enemy snipers eliminated, all during night operations. She never lost a single operator under her command. The SEALs who worked with her spread the word. There was an Army staff sergeant who owned the night, who could hunt and eliminate snipers in total darkness, who turned conventional wisdom about night operations completely upside down. During one joint operation, Valeria and her SEAL team tracked a particularly elusive enemy sniper who'd killed 7 American soldiers over 3 weeks. He was a ghost, appearing at night, taking 1 or 2 shots, then vanishing. Intelligence suggested he was a former Russian Spetsnaz operator, one of the best enemy combatants in the theater. Valeria spent 5 nights tracking him, learning his patterns, predicting his movements. On the 6th night, she positioned herself in a location he'd never expect below his firing position rather than across from it. When he set up for his nightly hunt, Valeria was already in position. She took the shot from 290 meters at an extreme upward angle. Threading the bullet through a narrow gap in the rocks, the enemy sniper fell from his perch, his weapon clattering down the mountainside. When they recovered his body, they found documentation showing he'd been responsible for over 40 coalition casualties. 1 shot, 1 kill, 1 legend eliminated by another. The Pentagon eventually made Valeria's training program mandatory for all special operations sniper teams. Her tactics, equipment recommendations, and operational procedures became the foundation for a new generation of night warfare capabilities. She gave lectures at Fort Benning, Quantico, and specialized training facilities across the military. Officers and enlisted personnel alike came to understand that the night wasn't the enemy's domain. It was neutral territory that favored whoever understood it best. The enemy thinks darkness protects them, Valeria would tell her students. They think their thermal scopes give them an advantage, but every advantage creates a vulnerability. Thermal scopes emit signatures. Night movement creates heat patterns. Confidence breeds predictability. If you understand these principles, you can turn the hunter into the hunted. Her reputation grew beyond the military. Intelligence agencies, federal law enforcement, even foreign allied forces requested her expertise. But Valeria remained focused on her primary mission, protecting American operators from enemy snipers who thought darkness made them invincible. By the end of her deployment, enemy sniper effectiveness had dropped by 70% in regions where Valeria's trained teams operated. The psychological impact was enormous. Enemy snipers who'd once owned the night now feared it. Knowing that American night hunters could find and eliminate them with precision, they'd said no one could hunt. Snipers at night, that the enemy's thermal optics made them too dangerous, too hard to locate, too well protected. Staff Sergeant Valeria Scott had proven them wrong. 10 enemy snipers eliminated in her first operation, then 8 more, then dozens more. Over months of operations, she'd turned the night from the enemy's advantage into their greatest vulnerability. She taught special operations forces that darkness wasn't something to fear, it was a tool to be exploited. The enemy had owned the night through superior optics and professional tactics, but those same tools that made them confident also made them visible to someone who understood how to hunt in darkness. Valeria Scott understood. And in the dark Afghan mountains, she'd become the predator that even the most skilled enemy snipers couldn't see coming. They thought thermal optics made them invincible at night. They were wrong. The darkness belonged to the hunter who understood it best, and that hunter was a 32-year-old Army staff sergeant who'd spent years perfecting the art of nocturnal warfare, 10 snipers before dawn, then 8 more, then 34 total over her deployment. The SEALs learned to trust the night hunter. The enemy learned to fear it. And Valeria Scott continued her work, moving through darkness like she was born to it, eliminating threats that everyone else said were impossible to find. Some predators hunt in daylight. Others own the darkness. Valeria Scott proved which one was deadlier. The night belonged to her, and every enemy sniper who thought otherwise learned that lesson exactly once, in the final seconds before a subsonic round arrived from a direction they never expected, fired by a hunter they never saw. 34 confirmed kills, 0 friendly casualties under her command, hundreds of operators trained in her methods. The legacy wasn't just the numbers. It was the fundamental shift in how American forces approached night operations. Before Valeria, darkness was feared. After her, it was weaponized. Enemy snipers still operated at night. But now they did so knowing that somewhere in that darkness, the hunter more skilled than they were might be tracking them, calculating angles, waiting for the perfect shot. The psychological warfare was as effective as the kinetic results. Fear changed behavior, made enemies hesitant, degraded their effectiveness even when no American night hunter was present. Staff Sergeant Valeria Scott had proven that the most dangerous predator wasn't the one with the best equipment or the most experience. It was the one who understood that every advantage contains the seeds of its own defeat, and who had the skill and patience to exploit those vulnerabilities in absolute darkness.